Good morning. It's Ladina Boo from Stockton, Missouri, once again. And today we have our guest, Tom Johnson. He currently resides in the Bolivar Dunnigan area, and he has a ministry called Sling and Stones. Um, and it's a recovery ministry. So, anyway, he has agreed to come here today and talk with us. And let's start with your own life. I know that you said over the years you've been homeless a few times and in jail a few times. And
It was one time. It was just for a real long time.
one time for a real long time. Okay.
That's what before I relapsed the first time. I used to say I only did drugs once from
Mhm.
1983 to 1995. But that joke don't work no more because I relapsed.
Well,
Uh,
a lot of people relapse.
right,
I've watched
right.
it over the years with numerous
Yeah.
people.
But
So,
I grew up in California. Not the typical broken home drug addict. My father made good money. Him and my mom were married. I was a spoiled kid with probably too much time on my hand, and so and also I was told, be quiet, shut up. You're not going to be, you'll never amount to nothing. Those things that
things that
that
knock a child
get
down.
said to a child, and so being someone who was very smart, gifted, I started instead of hanging around with the people who were going places, I started hanging around with the people that um, you know
Just wanted a good time.
yeah, yeah. And so then I just started found out about, of course, girls and beer and marijuana, and that was about 15 years of age. And as not long after that, I loved marijuana the first time that I started smoking pot. And from then, cocaine and just all the other drugs that there were.
All
And
the
so,
meth and stuff finally got to you too, didn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was one time we couldn't find coke, uh, and so the guy said, "Well, they got some crystal meth," and I was like, "What's crystal meth?" And he says, "Well, it's kind of like coke." And the first time whenever I got high off of that stuff, it was off to the races, and that's all my life revolved around was that methamphetamine and trying to get it in a spoon so I could just
Uh-huh.
you do it for fun at first, but then you do it so you don't get sick. And
Yeah.
it's the same with meth as it is with heroin too. And so a lot of years homeless out in California, and then like I said. In 1995, I finally went to treatment for the first time and got sober. Uh, got sober for 10 years, and then got hooked on pain pills for the legal prescription that I had for headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so started all back over again until I came down here from up by where I used to live, come down to the Bolivar area in 2012. And my sobriety date this last time is July 7th, 2012. So,
Mm-hmm. So from basically 2005 until 2012, you were just going back and forth the drugs. And
yeah, yeah.
did
And
you get into alcohol much, or was it mainly
always,
drugs?
always had beer, always had marijuana, and then all the
Mm-hmm.
other, all the other fun stuff on the side. Had a long time. Um, Acid, and PCP was a big, big thing for a long time.
Those things scare me personally.
Very bad drugs.
Yeah, they just kind of scare me. It's like, okay, I've got stepsons that have been addicted to drugs. I've had my son did a number of drugs over the years before his death and so forth. And, um, you know, the ones that just stick with marijuana and stuff, it's like, okay, you don't bother me there. Well, I
Yeah,
don't have a
yeah,
problem with that. The Lord put it on the earth.
yeah,
So I'm not going to argue about the marijuana, but whenever the meth and the ecstasy and all that other stuff is coming in. It's like, I don't understand. And, when the ones that were doing heroin, it's like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I always made it a point to sit and talk to them and try to figure out, what got you here,
Yeah.
and it's difficult a lot of times. Now, the first time that you entered rehab back in '95, I think you said at that point your mother was dying of cancer, and you had been a Satan worshiper in high school and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And it was actually, so I went into rehab in 95. My mother passed away in 97. And so those 2 years in between that, the steps of AA wore me down. My hatred for God kind of diluted that a little bit so that I was able to even hear anybody say anything about God, And then so that day, um, when I was in treatment, I forget my phone does that. When I was in treatment, I got an AA book and it talked about God, and I started packing my bags, and the guy said, "What are you doing?" I said, I don't do the God thing." At this point, I still wasn't a Satan worshiper, but I still hated God. Had a lot of hatred to God. Thought everything bad in my life was a repayment from God for all the bad, evil things that I had done. And so then 2 years went by of me being in AA and hearing about higher power, and then my mother was dying from cancer, and Baptist preacher come to the house to kind of pray with her and give her some knowledge, and I heard him tell her about the fact that if she accepted Jesus, that all her sins would be forgiven. And so I thought, I think I might try to ride that train if that's true. I want to try that because
it's a really good train.
I've been riding the crazy train before that, right? and so it turned out to be so true, and I found the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing the way it turns your life around whenever the Lord finally grabs a hold of you, isn't it?
Yeah.
He can change the hardest of hearts,
Yeah.
and I've had friends that were witches in the past and stuff, and it's like, you need to get rid of this stuff out of your house.
Yeah.
You need to get the dark out and move on to something better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at one point the books got back at her. I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't want God in there.
Yeah.
So you've been sober now for at least 10 years.
9.5 years, coming up on 10 this July.
And so, tell us how you started Slinging Stones and what was your thought process there?
Well, so here in Springfield, Missouri, there's a ministry called Freeway Ministries, and great ministry that they do. They have a church service on Saturday nights. Now they've got them several nights, but at the time I heard about them, it was a Saturday night. I went down there and I seen them, and there's a guy that's got the words "F you" tattooed across his throat, just preaching to 300-400 people, and you see people covered in tattoos worshiping God with their hands held up, and I was like, man, this is the way that if addicts heard the word of God preached like this, they would be able to change their heart. Never did I think that God would want to use me to do something like that, but so then I just started. I was going there back and forth, and then there was a weekend when I couldn't get up there on a Saturday because I didn't have gas money, and so I've struggled with depression my whole life, and until recently. But I was just upset, and then I felt like God had said, "I'm not training you to go down the Freeway Ministries and do that stuff." He's like, "I want you to start something like that here in Bolivar."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You must have the wrong guy, because by this time I'm working on a divorce, dropped out of high school, like everything that I've ever, lost everything." And I'm like, I don't think that could be me, Lord. And so I talked to a couple guys, and talked to my pastor at the time, and felt like that it could be something that could make a go of it, and started looking for a building. And then there was a building that the church I was attending was getting ready to give to another nonprofit, and it had fallen through on the day when I went to go talk to my pastor. They were getting ready to sign it over on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, we got a building. And I said, where? And he told us. And then that was the building where we started out. And we started having them out there. And that was November 1, 2014 was our first service.
You had a fire somewhere in there, didn't you not?
That was 2020. It was December 20th of 2020. So yeah, we had been going about 5 years at that time. And is that math right? I think so. But yeah, we got a call. I got a call from one of the ladies that goes to our church. It was early in the morning, and she said, we had just bought the farm. And I don't even remember where I was. And the lady called and she said, hey, I just drove by and I think our church is on fire. And I said, our church? What do you mean? You mean the farm? And she said, no, the church up on the square. It was on the square in Ball over there. And I said, what? And so drove up there, and sure enough, our church was burning down. And before I had left the house, there was that song playing, Nothing Can Stop an Unstoppable God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was listening to that, and I prayed, and I'm like, Lord, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you're all sovereign, and it'll work out how it needs to work out. So I got ready, and I drove up there, and sure enough, they're trying to contain it, but I used to be on the fire department. I could tell that they weren't going to. And my wife calls, freaking out. She says, hey, our church is burning. And I said, just off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing could stop an unstoppable God. And she says, no, listen what I'm trying to tell you. Because I always say crazy stuff because I'm just out there, kind of like Robin Williams. She said, no, shut up. I'm trying to tell you something. Our church is on fire. I said, I know. I'm heading up there. And listen to what I'm telling you. Nothing can stop an unstoppable God. And she just changed her demeanor. She said, oh, okay, I'll meet you up there. We went up there and we watched our church burn down to the ground, Everything we worked 5 years for was gone in a few hours. But
it's heartbreaking when that happens, and so many people give up at that point and say, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to go to that expense. I'm not going to go to that trouble.
Right.
I just can't get through it.
Yeah.
But there's always a way through if you just keep your head right.
Well, that's the name of your show is Trials and Triumphs. And without those trials, we are not able to triumph.
Yeah, and you can't enjoy your triumphs if you stay in some dark depression or, you just give up. And so it's so easy these days, it seems like, somebody tries something, they turn around and walk away and never want to pick it up again. And it may have been their absolute calling, their absolute thing the Lord wanted them to do.
Right.
But, you just give up and you can't take all of that stress and so forth. And you think, well, it fell down once, nobody wants me to do it. And that's not really the case. And you figured that out with slinging stones, right?
Yeah. And I've tried, I always have all these ideas how I'm going to make money on the side or do this and do that. Those don't go, and I try them. I'm like, okay. It just keeps pointing to the fact that God don't want me doing nothing. I had a job and it went away. I had a job down here in Springfield and it went away, which I knew it a year ahead of time it was going to. I just felt it in my spirit. And the way that it did go away, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I've been working since I was 15. Like, even though the years on drugs, I still was working, And so I'm like, well, how does a man provide for a family? So I started, I'm 50 something years old. So I start delivering for Domino's, and then we just fall into that farm. We buy it, and Adina and Virgil were on the board then, and him and my wife and other people said, well, you're going to quit your job at Domino's and you're going to go full time. I'm like, well, how am I going to go full time? I ain't getting paid no money, Faith.
Yeah.
When I walked in and told my boss at Domino's, hey, and so God has you could tell I haven't missed a lunch or breakfast, and God's worked it out to where now I'm making $250 a week. There's some people have come along and threw that in so that I get a little bit of a paycheck, and our bills are paid through the church because we live on site. So
Yeah.
so God's the whole way just
Mhm.
kept showing me. I was like, oh, if I do this on the side, I can make some money. God's like, before I was cutting trees because I'm a certified arborist, and so I was cutting trees on the side, and God just made it to where you don't got to do that. You can just, $250 a week gets you what you need, to buy your body armors and your Dr. Peppers, and you're good.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that little big cash at the grocery store.
Well, my thing is, I love to keep. I always keep a $50 bill in my wallet to bless people.
Mhm.
See somebody whether they're struggling or whether they're a ministry or whatever. Just here you go.
Mhm.
$50 bill just
Yeah, that
puts.
can change somebody's life immensely. Just that one little bit. Or somebody taking the time just to buy some person behind them at a drive-through
Yeah.
their lunch.
Right. What got me started doing that was we were at a pastor's retreat, I guess you would call it, and this was the first time that we went public with it, that we were um, actively looking for a piece of property for Slinging Acres. Like, we had the ID in place, we had the name, all that stuff, and so I said that, and so the guy that was leading it, he said, find another pastor and you pray for his dream, and he's going to pray for your dream. And as soon as I got done talking about this farm, out of nowhere, like a magician, like, me and this guy's holding hands praying, and out of nowhere, this guy pulls out $100 bill, and he goes, that's your first $100 seed for that farm. You buy that farm with that $100. And I'm like, I don't even know how he did that. And so at the time, I wasn't financially able to start doing that, but now I am. And so I keep a 50 in there to do that with. But so I took that 100 and I made a photocopy of it. And then I crossed that out and I just hung that up at the church and just prayed over it. Lord, bless that times 10, then bless it times 1,000. And then happened what I told you of how we bought the farm. 75 days, we raised $13,500.
That's amazing. Now, as far as the people you bring into Slinging Stones, I know they're referred to you by somebody. I don't think you've gone out and found them on the street, have you?
Well, sometimes we do.
Yeah, I've had friends that's gone out and found them on the streets,
yeah.
But I think you have more of an organization behind you.
Yeah, we have a huge network. We're part of the Community Connections. We're part of the CIT organization. We're on a couple boards. I'm actually the president of the board that feeds people in the community on Monday nights, and then we work with the all the law enforcement, just anybody and everybody. So I mean, on our one flyer that we have, it's got like 30 of our people that we network with, family services, and just anybody and everybody that might ever encounter somebody that needs our help is very aware of us. They have our flyers, The other day, me and my wife, I like to deer hunt. Me and my wife were out looking for deer antlers. They drop their antlers this time of year. And so we were out looking for deer antlers, and the sheriff calls me and he says, hey, Mr. Johnson, this is so-and-so with the Polk County Sheriff. You got a second to talk? I'm like, yeah, of course. And he's like, had a guy there that called the police because he was wanting to kill himself. So he called the police called me, and I talked to this boy for a while, and the sheriff said, okay, I'll let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, just a simple thing like talking to someone or reaching out and holding their hand. So many people feel like there's nobody that sees them and nobody that understands them. And so they're just lost. And it doesn't take that much for anybody to just say, hey, are you doing okay? can I pray with you? Whatever the
Yeah.
case may be.
Yeah.
It changes a person's perspective in their
Yeah.
world, just like that young man. You know, it's, I went to way too many funerals for people who have committed suicide, and um, it breaks my heart when people are failed that way.
Yeah.
Now, you've had some success with your guys there. Have you graduated very many people out of your program?
We've graduated 2 so
Mhm.
far. We've had some that come in for shorter stays,
Mhm.
and they're out working and doing well. And we're only able to hold 2 to 3 men at a time
Mhm.
because of our situation. But we're currently looking to. My wife and I bought a house that's right by the farm, and so we're looking to possibly hire a gentleman, maybe like a retired guy that a vet or something, that just needs a place
Mhm.
to live rent free. He can oversee the day to day operations. And then once we get that situated, maybe add on a little bit
Mhm.
so we can bring in a few more guys.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of vets out there that have always felt ignored. You know,
Yep.
the Vietnam vets, I know a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
them still have, a lot of heartbreak over
Right,
that.
right.
And
And they're still getting lied to by the government, but I digress.
Okay, well, we will not get into political discussions because I get very vocal, okay? My heart is broken over my United States because the one wearing right now is not the one I was raised
Right.
in.
Yeah,
There is a big difference there.
yeah.
Now, what kind of meetings you do AA and?
So yes, so we attend all kinds of meetings. We run tonight. We will have at the Christian church there in Bolivar, Missouri. They've let us. So let me go back to after the fire. The Methodist Church took us in
Mhm.
for 9 months, and last September, the Christian church that is right by the Bill Roberts dealer, coming up to the square on 32. They've taken us in, and they've allowed us to. We've got our name on the front door, a sticker sign, and we got our name out on the electronic sign out front. And so we hold our Saturday night meetings there, and then tonight we'll have at 7 o'clock we have our All Addicts Anonymous meeting, and so it's more of a Christ centered 12-step program.
Mhm.
And so we use all of the curriculum from AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, the Bible, all different kind of things like that.
Mhm.
But we try to also keep it. Um, while we are, the reason we started that is because in the traditions of AA, it says any two people that don't have any outside affiliation can be an AA group. Us
Mhm.
being a church nullifies us being able to start our own AA program,
Right.
holding an AA meeting. So that's why we do that. And so we have, sometimes we have 5 people, and sometimes we have, I think the one night we had 18 or 22 people, just coming
Mhm.
together and just being there for each other, being supportive.
That's like our church. We get together and fine. I am the pastor of the church. I've got my name on the front and everything, but um, we study the Bible. We get into conversations. We
Right.
just go
Yeah.
verse by verse
Yeah.
and see where it's going, and
Yep.
communicate that to our daily life right now because it's a living word. I mean, you can find stuff about everything going on right now if you
Right.
know where to look.
Yep.
So that's always what's impressed me the most about the Bible is the fact that it is living, and if you can get people to understand that and really study on it, um, it would change their life dramatically.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. And you're 100% right. I preach in a way that I want people to, at the end of the night, go home and say, I don't know if that crazy guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go open my Bible up and see if he's right, because I know that when I was alone with my Bible, that's where God met me, and that's where I was changed. That's how I was transformed.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit here and listen to somebody preach. We went down to James River last week because one of the girls in our program went to a women's conference down there, and she got back. She got saved at the women's conference,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that Sunday we went so she could get baptized. And I've always been, I'll never go to mega church or whatever, And I listen to Pastor John on the
Mm-hmm.
radio, on the thing, whatever it's called, podcast, and he's a great preacher, and so is his son. And we were down there, and I see him preaching. I'm like, man, this dude can handle the word of God,
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, all right, well, maybe I was wrong about that whole big church thing, but at our church, we do like you do, If we got 30 people on a Saturday night, if I'm preaching and I talk about something that you don't understand, some concept, maybe you think I'm wrong, maybe you read it and misunderstood it, stop everything. We'll sit here, we'll flesh it out. Everybody
That's
talk
right.
about it because I don't want to. When I was saved, here's what happened. I started going to every Bible study, every church, anything I could go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept hearing, oh, we all know the story about Jonah, We all know the story about Jonah. I'm like, no, I don't know the story about Jonah. And then when I find it, it's like 3 pages in the Bible. I thought it was half the Bible. And so I always try to preach in a way that someone doesn't feel made dumb or they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to come back.
Right.
You know?
That's one thing that, we've been there since 1904. And, fine, we've had various preachers over the years that just went up there, and most of them were hellfire and damnation,
Right.
and which was fine. I grew up with that. I didn't have a problem with that. But then it got to the point where the church membership got so small because I'm way out in the country. Um, we just decided that, okay, we're just going to study the Bible. We're going to study it front to back, and we're going to sit here and we're going to discuss it. How do you interpret this and so forth? And I think it really gives people a greater understanding
Yep.
than somebody trying to interpret it for you.
Right. Yep. And, when I started preaching, I'm, what is the name for someone like myself? Somebody who has to have all the facts and all the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I used to know the name for it. There's a big, huge, fancy name, but analytical, And so I started reading how to write the perfect sermon and how to do this and how to properly exegete and all this stuff. And it gets you farther away from the people that you're trying to reach,
Right.
Uh, and so, I'm not saying, I try to read all that stuff, but, you start reading all that stuff. Oh, well, this commentary says this, and this commentary says this. But what does your spirit say when you're praying alone with God, drinking some good coffee,
Mm-hmm.
looking at a sunrise? What does that word speak to you, in truth,
Right.
with the spirit guiding you? That's probably.
Yeah, that I think most people don't understand that. It's like, okay, you go to church on Sunday, you listen to the preacher, and you think you're good for the week. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
You're supposed to live the Bible.
Right.
And if you
Yep.
don't understand it, you can't very well live it.
Right. Yep.
So I think, when people take the time to study it and so forth, and as far as any kind of instructions you get from somebody else, you know, you do what the Lord tells you to do. Preach from your heart,
Yeah.
and that's what makes a difference in so many lives, And, you've been through all this stuff in the past, the Satan worshiping, the living under bridges and homelessness, um,
Yeah.
and so forth. And so you're able to reach out and talk to the people that come to you, that are sent to you.
Yeah.
And you can touch their lives when a lot of people couldn't.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So the guys are all just referred to you from various organizations and so forth. You do have plans to expand at
Yeah,
some point?
we would love to expand, and we would love to be able to have a woman's home,
Mm-hmm.
And we do. Adina, she's trying to start a woman's home, and if she does that, we would not have a need to do that because we would send people to her, and she could send people to us,
Yep.
And so, and we do partner with others, we've got several other ministries that we partner with that do women's ministries,
Mm-hmm.
and so.
I know quite a few people, a couple of people right now just come on into my head that have a women's ministry. But,
Yeah.
It's all difficult, and there's so much background checking you have to do when people come in,
Right.
So it's always difficult to get something like that going. But I'm really proud of the fact that you guys been going as long as you have right now.
Yep, I've made it past the part when most pastors fold at 7 years, and so I'm a
Mhm.
couple months past that, so we should be good, right?
You at least hope so, right?
There's days, I tell you, and it's great. You go to these conferences or you watch a pastor online, and he's being serious, and I realize that I'm, all these pastors are like, I told my wife Sunday morning before church, this is the last day I'm preaching. I'm quitting, I'm turning. And I'm reading a book right now, and the guy said, he goes to all these different towns and talks to all these different churches, and pastor pulls him to the side, uh, I'm getting ready to break it to the board that I'm quitting because the stress is just too much, and it is. And then so you've got your pastoral duties, then you've got your mentoring duties for the guys at the out at the recovery farm, And then I'm supposed to be a good husband, and then I'm supposed to, be a community member and all that stuff, and I'm trying to make some living amends. I was a horrible father to a horrible husband to my first wife and to my children, and so now I'm having the opportunity to make living amends with my stepson Dustin.
Mhm.
Uh, and so those are the things that we have to try to keep all that stuff in balance while getting up early enough to read the Bible. And,
Mhm.
when you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're climbing around in sewer water under your house, your day don't start as good as a day
Yeah.
with a cup of coffee and reading the Bible,
Yeah, give me my hour in the morning, and God and I can talk first thing, so the rest of you are not getting on my nerves.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all run into somebody in the
Yeah.
day that's going to
Yeah.
just push your button.
Right. And so, yes, but God has proved himself true to his word, that, through those trials, he brings us that faith that's made perfect by those temptations and enduring, and,
Hmm.
you know,
Enduring's a big thing, right? If you can endure it, you can come through it, and you can stand tall when it's all said and done.
yeah,
And you have the ability with the things that have gone on in your life to reach out to the guys that come there, and you know, just kind of turn them a little bit down the right path,
right,
and
yeah,
try to bring them closer to the Lord.
right.
You know.
I seen a thing a long time ago, and it was a hole with a guy stuck down in the bottom, and the people was walking by, hey, help me, hey, help me, hey, help me. And one guy come by, and he jumped down in the hole. And the guy said, what are you doing? He said, now we're both stuck in the hole. And the guy says, I've been down in the bottom of the hole before, but I know how to get out, follow
Mhm.
me. And so that's what we're doing. We're just, I just try to show these. And like I said before, I try to preach the perfect sermon, or I try to do this. All I got to do is tell these guys how I got sober, what I did do, what I didn't do, and what I was like, and how I am now, and let that speak for itself.
That's the thing that I found so dramatic is listen to somebody's story and listen to what they have to say, and especially if they've gone through something that somebody else is trying to go through right now. If they just have that one person they can identify with, it helps lift them up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And now you told me before about how you came up with the name Slinging Stones. So
Yeah, yeah,
why don't you share that with everybody
yeah,
here?
yeah. Just whenever I felt like that, we were pretty sure that we were going to be creating the ministry. I was just laid out prostrate before God in a ratty old slumlord special house, and as I was trying to get back on my feet, and then God told me to study the life of David, and so I started reading through, the life of David, and over there, it's been a long time since I've been there, maybe 2 Samuel 16 or 17, maybe. Uh, he talks about him fighting the giant, and it says that he killed him with just a sling and a stone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sling and stone, and then I'm all about things being able to be shortened down. I said, sling and stone. I was like, S and S, that would sound cool, and hip. and it's got a double entendre, I guess you call it.
Mhm.
People who have never done drugs, they say, "Oh, slinging stones like David and Goliath, right?" And then if they've done drugs, they say, "Slinging stones, right?" Like talking about
Got
something.
my rock.
And then so our tagline is helping you conquer the giants in your life.
And that's what the drug addictions and so
Yeah.
forth are, aren't they? The
Yeah.
giants that we
Yeah.
put in front of ourselves,
Yeah.
which is the horrible part.
Yeah.
But there is a way out, and there is a way to get yourself up and become productive and walk away from all those things that are slowly killing people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
And to have somebody walk with you, holding their hand, showing you the way out.
that's one of the kids that I mentor with. Doesn't have a real good relationship with her father because he was never around. And I took her into church one day, and she'd always been upset about her father being missing in her life. And she finally came to me and she said, I'm not so concerned about it now because I know that I've got a father who cares about me and loves me more than
Yeah.
anybody on this
Yeah.
earth could.
Right.
And, when you can make people see that and understand that the Lord does love you and
Yeah.
He will make
Yeah.
your life better and He'll bring you through whatever dark times you're in.
Yeah.
It's hard to make people understand that, but it's like, that's my life.
Right.
I've gone through very dark times over the years. I still go through dark times, but I know that the Lord is there to watch over me and help me bring somebody else up.
Yeah.
That's our job, help bring somebody else up out of that darkness. And you and your wife are doing a really good job at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, she puts up with me, so talk
Yeah.
about darkness.
Well, you probably had this wife because she didn't know you when you were being really dark, okay?
Right. Yeah.
These days she probably doesn't even believe those stories, does she?
Once in a while she does.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday when I come up from under that house covered in cat poop, yes, and was a little bit mad. Yes, she knew that there could be some truth to it.
Well, it's not any fun waking up to your plumbing all over your house,
No.
drown everything in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You only have like 4 or 5 guys there every week or every month. Did they stay for a year or 6
We
months?
try to get them to. We prefer for them to stay for a year because it's been proven that long-term treatment, which is 6 months or more, has way higher result rates because it gets them through a whole year's worth of triggers and things that might try to make them relapse. Death of a loved one, or birthdays, or holidays.
A lot of these guys who have been into drugs too, they've kind of walked away from their children. Do you try to reunite
Yeah, and
families?
so we have been fortunate enough through oh, I'm drawing a blank. Over in Stockton, the family building over in Stockton. I'm not sure.
The family services building there?
No. Oh my goodness, Cheryl's going to kill me. But anyways, they have teamed up with Good Dads down here, and so we've got our guys. We were the first group in Cedar County, Missouri, for the guys to go through the Good Dads program, and so they're doing that. And then we get them. We work with. We have favor with children's services, with probation and parole and all that stuff. So the second that they come into the program, and we get them on we're able to try to get them back in their lives. We're able to try to help them get reduced child support costs while they're in the program, so that they can try to get some of that. So yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for asking me to come.
Run out of our time, but I hope to see you or some of your fellows there before long, and let them all come in and tell us what's going on.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much.
Because without our trials, we're not going to have any triumphs. So,
Nope. Nope. And if we did, they wouldn't be worth anything.
No, they wouldn't. We wouldn't appreciate them. So thank you so much for coming today.
All right, you bet.